Welcome to the 2022 Monomoy Congressional Debate hosted by the MRHS Political Action Club. My name is Tyler Brackett and I will be moderating today's debate. We are privileged today to have two candidates attending, Representative William Keating and Republican nominee Jesse Brown. We thank the candidates here for taking the time to meet with us today. The format of the debate will start with opening statements from each candidate limited to 60 seconds. Then, our panel of students will ask questions which the candidates will answer in alternating order. Responses will be limited to 60 seconds. And a 30-second follow-up response may be allowed. We will end with concluding statements limited to 60 seconds. Our timers will monitor the length of the responses. They will put one hand up when there is 15 seconds and another hand up when your time is concluded. The questions were developed and prioritized by the MRHS Political Action Club. And now we will decide by lot which of our...
That should be already said.
Which...
It's all said.
Which...
They are where they are.
They are where they are. So are we starting?
Oh, I'm starting?
I'm not sure.
So just say, we're not drawing by lots for where they're standing.
Right, but who will be asking, who will be giving the first opening statement?
Jesse.
Okay. Jesse Brown has been selected to give the first opening statement.
Well, I want to thank Monomoy, but I want to start off with a quick little story. About a couple weeks ago, it was a cold, rainy night, and there was a football team that was playing. I see a lot of football jerseys in here right now. And you were over in Sandwich, and there's about 15 people in the stands, and I was one of those people in the stands watching this game. And I want to say, I don't know the number because there was a bad night out there, but is number 33 in here? I don't know who number 33 is, but is number 33? I think he scored all the touchdowns, but I just want to commend you guys on a tremendous win that night. It was the last 10 seconds of the game, so a round of applause to the football team. Sorry, Bill, I know that maybe that just went a little bit more than the 60 seconds that I had. I'm sorry. But my name is Jesse Brown, and I am your candidate for the United States House of Massachusetts 9th District. I'm going to give you a quick bio of myself. I'm a United States Marine Corps veteran, a small business owner, and a co-founder of a nonprofit that helps veterans in need. I grew up in southeastern Massachusetts, growing up in Taunton, and I currently reside in Plymouth, Massachusetts. I enlisted in the Marine Corps at 17 years old. Upon my return to the civilian world, I started working in the construction industry and working my way up from climbing the cell towers to becoming a foreman, to becoming a construction manager, to eventually owning my own company, which is now one of the largest veteran-owned businesses in the state of Massachusetts. 2013, I co-founded a nonprofit that helps veterans in need, which we've helped over 1,000 veterans in a multitude of ways. And the reason I'm telling you all this is that the American dream today is at crossroads, but it's still attainable. But what we have going on right now down in Washington puts that at risk. And that's one of the big reasons I'm running, is for the future of all of you in here, and we need that, and we need change down in Washington. So I appreciate your time, and I appreciate everybody coming out, and I appreciate Mr. Keating for his time coming up here, taking time out of his busy schedule. So thank you.
And the next opening statement will be from Representative Keating.
Well, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. I was talking to the seniors that are here and realizing that it was just maybe 6 years after I was a senior in high school that I was running for elective office as a state representative. And the biggest issue at that time was I was too young to have that job. I didn't have enough experience in the job at the time. And certainly at that age, I wouldn't know enough about the important issues that affected everyone's life. And I want to tell you, I was successful during that campaign because I was able to transform people from saying, I was just too young to do the job, to saying, I'm listening to the issues that he's bringing up, and they are important to me, whether I'm a young person, middle-aged, or an older person. Your involvement here with Mr. Dixon, and thank you again for organizing this, and Principal Police to give us the opportunity in the school to do it is so important. It's one of the more important things we've done in this campaign, because I know, because I lived through it, how at every age you can change things. And I must tell you, right now in our world, the things that concern me the greatest are the things that are going to concern you and your lives, even more than they affect people my age. It'll be things like climate change, a woman having her own rights to healthcare decisions, marriage equality, being able to go to school, get an education, and go forward. So I look forward to discussing these issues with you, and I want to thank you for participating in an important event. Thank you.
Our first question will be asked by Levy. The first response will be given by Representative Keating, and the next response will be given by Jesse Brown.
Our first question is, do you think Congress should pass legislation in response to the overturning of Roe v. Wade?
Thank you for the question. Did everyone hear that?
No.
It dealt with the Supreme Court decision. I'll just explain it and then try to get it with the time constraints. It dealt with the Supreme Court Dobbs decision that took away the rights protected for over half a century with Roe versus Wade. And do you think that Congress can do something about that? Thank you. That decision is one of the more fundamental decisions where our rights that we had had for over 50 years were taken away from us. And I say our right. I'm not a woman. You might have noticed, but I'm not a woman. But women have this right being taken away from them, a fundamental right, just to be making decisions in the privacy of their doctor's office with their physician and themselves. In Congress, on the House side, last July, we passed a law, even though we didn't think, or we didn't hope that the Supreme Court would act this way, to codify, to make law, all the protections in Roe versus Wade. And it's so important. Worse yet with that decision, they left it up to the states. Can you imagine that? They left it up to the states so that in some states, there'll be exceptions for certain things, and in other states, there'll be no exception for rape, no exceptions for incest, no exceptions for the health care. And they're leaving it up to state representatives and local officials, instead of having it as a right that the decision's made not by them, but by a woman and her doctor.
So this decision that transpired, as the congressman just said, that it got codified, or that they put out legislation to be codified. The question that I always have on it is that we've had people in Congress this for years, even though it's been overturned, we've seen this coming for years. Why hasn't the person standing to my left, or anybody down in Congress, done anything in that time frame to put forth whatever they believe? They put forth nothing. The reason I stand up here is that we see people in Congress right now doing nothing. We need people, it's a time for a change. And just to make my stance clear on anything, I will not support, while down there, I will not support a national ban on abortion at all. But that overturning comes down to people down in Washington right now have not done anything. They're being reactionary, not proactive.
We will allow 30-second follow-up responses on this issue, first from Representative Keating.
Well, thank you. What you didn't say is what you said in the radio show, that you agree with the Dobbs decision, and you agree allowing the states to do it. You said that on BSN radio. I have the recording of that, by the way, which was just a few weeks ago. That's the fact. So you should be clear on that issue. And you know what? We'll hear this so long. It'll be a story, oh, you've been there too long. It's not how long you've been there. It's what you stand for that counts.
No, actually, it's what you do that counts, and you haven't done anything.
Also, we would just ask the audience to please hold your applause. We would not like you to be interrupting the candidates. Thank you. Our next question will be asked by Chloe.
Do you believe Congress should pass stricter gun laws to reduce the risk of school shootings?
I'm a big advocate of the Second Amendment and the right to bear arms. What we have now is we need to have more security in our schools. There's a lax security aspect, and in being in Congress, you have to bring that forth. We don't, the laws that are down there, as I said, I'm a strong advocate. I'm not going to advocate for stronger gun laws. I'm going to advocate for stronger mental health and stronger, to have officers or to have protection for our schools.
You're gonna-
Yes, thank
Okay, I
you.
was waiting for your cue. Thank you.
Yes.
And again, doing something about it and voting for something. Voting is important as well. Just as I did on the Dobbs decision, actually did more than stand for something. I voted for something. And I voted on these gun laws for greater protection. I believe in the Second Amendment, but I don't think that means that 19 children in a school should be gunned down. I don't think that means that the police officers on the street should, like my own family, my own niece who is right here in this region as a police officer, should face the threat of military style and military grade assault weapons on the street. They should be banned. There's no place for them in our society right now. And this is easy stuff if it wasn't for the politics that surround these issues. The money that goes into affecting policy that has a gun lobby that makes too many representatives cower down and be afraid to vote their conscience on this issue. We have common sense gun laws that we can pass. We should, and that's what I have done, and that's what I will continue to do if given the chance.
Thank you. We will allow 30 seconds of follow-up responses on this issue. First from Jesse Brown.
Again, I think it all comes down to what gets done. If we have these shootings, what was done? You keep talking that you've done things, but what is it? I don't know. That's the question I'm asking. You've been in elected office for 45 years, as long as I've been alive, and you haven't done anything.
Wow. I'll tell you then, you haven't been paying attention in our debates. You can look all through this whole Cape Cod area, and my thumbprint is on so many things that we've done to help here. But let's not sidestep the issue of common sense gun laws by retreating back to saying simply that you've been there too long. I've got to tell you this. The question is, who is stopping this? And we have a Republican House that almost to a person stops these from going forward any further. So the question is, who are you going to send there to make a change occur? Not blaming someone else for their own party's ability to stop issues like common sense gun laws.
Thank you. Our next question will be asked by Christy.
Our next question is, if elected, what steps will you take to address the global climate crisis?
We passed this year the most historic piece of legislation dealing with climate change in the history of the United States. $369 billion, all going into making sure we're moving away from our reliance on oil and gas and fossil fuels. Our planet is just being destroyed as we stand here. It's an existential threat, and it's real. First, we have to acknowledge it's real, and then we have to understand that it's up to all of us. We have disagreements. My opponent wanted us pulled out of the Paris Agreement for global climate change. He just said that in our last debate. I want to include ourselves with the world and lead the world in dealing with this issue. I've had Greta Thunberg in front of my committee testifying as a young person on the need of this in Washington. I've gone to the COP26 conference in Glasgow just last year to unite the world. But we have to do what we have to do in our own country. And climate change is one of the most important issues that we can address and change. And we've just concluded the most historic change that we could in combating this just a few months ago.
Obviously, we know climate change is a huge issue, and just to correct you, I said there's pros and cons to it, of the Paris climate change. I didn't answer that question of pulling out of it, not to say there's pros and cons to sit there and talk back and forth. We can go back and forth of our debates of what was said, what wasn't said. So, you also just stated that you just passed a large bill of $69 billion. How much came to Massachusetts? That's what I want to know. About 75% of our infrastructure here is coastline. We see it eroding every single day, but again, we have no money for it. And the job of Congress, we can sit here and have the morality aspect, but the job of a congressman is to go down there and bring back the funds to this district. And that's something that I'm gonna do, something that, even though you pass a bill, it's more important, how much did you personally bring back here? And one thing you just did state, it is a Democrat-held Congress right now, and a Democrat-held Senate, and a Democrat-held presidency, and you passed the largest infrastructure bill in the history of the United States, and you still didn't bring your money back here.
We will allow a follow-up on this issue. First by Representative.
I think most of you, Mr. Dixon's probably told you that there's a 60% rule in the Senate, where majority doesn't rule. So it's not totally under our control. What did I bring? How about down the street in Wellfleet, $27 million to deal with the Herring River project, the biggest in the northeast part of the country. What about the largest infrastructure bill and the bill I referenced that's targeted to climate change issues? And I think all of you have studied government to understand, we just passed it a few months ago, so the money is not even distributed yet. So don't ask me what we brought when that process isn't even started. But I also started and founded the program for all of southern New England that the Cape Cod and the islands have all benefited from in terms of grants and monies. We've got a lion's share of that, and many of this through my own legislation.
Thank you, Mr. You may continue.
You just said the money hasn't been distributed yet. You brought back all the prior debates. You said money just doesn't sit on the shelf. So if you said the money hasn't been distributed yet, where is it? You just said, I'm curious, because what we're talking about, you just passed the largest infrastructure bill, and we have one of the biggest projects in Massachusetts, in our district, which are the Cape Cod bridges. And once again, you've claimed it as gospel that the money was there, and it's not there. Where is it?
The money's there. If I could.
Unfortunately, we can't
All
allow
right.
interruptions.
I'll try and get to the next question, how the money's there and how, even
it
though the
doesn't sit on the
engineering's
shelf.
not even done, that the money's not spent before it's being built.
Thank you. Our next question will be asked by Caitlin.
What level of support should the U.S. give to Ukraine in its war with Russia?
Our first response will be given by Jesse Brown.
It's the support we're given right now. We need to support Ukraine, but not with American soldiers, Marines, or any of our military putting personnel on the ground. We need to support them with the financial aspects that we've already been given them, but need to monitor those aspects, as which we're doing right now. The war over there could have been very much prevented. We've been discussing this for the last 2 days, that it all started back with Crimea, when Russia invaded Crimea and took it over. We did nothing about it at all. At that time, Congressman Keating still was in office, and that prolonged this to where Putin, seeing the weakness of an administration at that time, waited until the Nord Stream 2. President Biden took over office. 4 days after that, they built that gas line, and next thing you know, we have a war in Ukraine. We need people in Washington that are proactive, not are reactionary to the issues out there.
The administration for most of that time was the Donald Trump administration. And Crimea is one where the aggression was there. It's contiguous to Russia. But what did we do after that? We started, and I supported, the Ukraine Assistance Fund, which trained these troops. We've all seen how well they're performing. That's not by accident. The U.S., since 2014, has been assisting them in that training. We should support Crimea not just because Putin's aggression moved into a sovereign country, the biggest time since World War II, and is threatening their democracy. It's threatening our democracy as well. That type of aggression has to be halted. You know, I learned this firsthand. Twice in the last year, I've been to the Ukraine border. I've been talking to the people that have fled their homes, most of them women whose husbands are still there fighting, and their children. And I met young people, including some people your age and younger. What they've seen in terms of the war crimes, as chairman of the Committee on Europe, I've had 3 hearings on these war crimes. We have a situation where it's democracy versus authoritarianism. There's a lot more at stake in Ukraine in providing the military assets and the support necessary, and we'll do more.
Thank you. Our next question will be asked by Deb. Yes.
Sorry.
You both answered, correct?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Our next question will be asked by Deb.
What action should Congress take to protect transgender youth?
You said I didn't.
Sorry.
Transgender youth. Transgender youth. This is always a subject. Every person, this is always a question to ask. LGBTQ is a thing. First question I always ask, are they Americans? You need to take care of Americans. Any issues that are out there, you're going to take care of the LGBT community. We're dividing it, as I would take care of any constituent that's here in this Commonwealth, specifically the 9th District.
Discrimination against anyone is discrimination against everyone. And in our country right now, there's too much discrimination against the transgender community, and it's under threat. If you look at the Dobbs decision again, and you listen to what Supreme Court Justice Thomas had said, it's opened up in terms of equality in marriage. It's opened up in terms of transgender rights. These are being threatened right now as we speak, our fundamental rights. And to me, that's a fundamental right. And I'll stand and defend it and vote that way, and I have. I'll continue to do it because it's the right thing to do. If we allow what's happening now, the persecution of people, in some states they're saying transgender people can't vote because their photo ID might be different. So you can see how an initial right taken away can lead to an erosion of all these other freedoms we have as a country. And we have to make sure we elect people that will understand that, but more importantly, stand up when it's being attacked.
Thank you. Our next question will be asked by Caitlin.
What more can Congress do to address crime and help people feel safer?
I think we already mentioned what we could do for some common sense gun safety laws. But also, I come from a police family. My dad was a police officer. My brother was a police officer. My niece is right here in Cape Cod as a police officer, and her husband is in Cape Cod as a police officer. I come from a police family. And I must tell you, respect is so important. People have to show all people in public service respect, and that includes our police officers. We have to make sure they can do their jobs well. I hear the slogan, defund the police. Well, we just voted to increase the police. We had voted last year for funds to give to communities to fund the police. That was unfortunately a partisan vote. Democrats voted to fund the police with that. Republicans, despite the rhetoric of today, voted not to. That's a matter of roll call vote, not my opinion. So we have to fund them, we have to respect them, and we have to make sure we give them the tools to do their jobs well. And we have to work on mental health issues, as I did as a district attorney with my own police force, to make sure we're giving treatment for mental health and not taking the criminal justice system and using that as a safety net.
The biggest thing, I've talked to police agencies across the state, and the biggest thing that they want is advocacy in Washington. They don't feel that they have it. I will agree with Congressman Keating that they are underfunded right now, that there is a worker shortage. The retention rates, the recruitment rates, and the mental health issues are so exacerbated because they are overworked because we're not giving them the proper resources. I'll give a prime example. New Bedford needed 30 officers just to patrol the streets of the people that they have there right now. They got 3 officers. Now again, I'm a business owner, and if you cannot make these accommodations for the people to keep all of you safe out here, why we keep electing the same exact people? It's the same rhetoric over and over. I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, but nothing gets done. We need to have public safety as one of my #1 priorities. Without every one of you being safe, nothing else happens. So my priority down there is to keep you safe 100%.
Thank you. Our next question will be asked by Declan.
Do you support question 4 about immigrants' driver's licenses? And what actions should Congress take relative to immigration laws?
I don't think the question was question 4 in immigration law, all in one question. Question 4, I support having the driver's licenses the way the legislature voted to do that. I think that it only affects driver's license. Don't let any of the rhetoric fool you in that respect. And number 2, it's resulted in people being insured. 17 states have already done this. And in the states that have done it, you're seeing the rates in terms of insurance claims and being able to process those, having people that are driving with a license. The people who were driving without a license, that number was reduced 60 to 80% in those states. We're safer with that. And so, to me, it's common sense, and it's something that will deal with it. With immigration, I'll never get with my time limit here, but our system is broken, and we have to continue to work. You know, we have to continue to work as Republicans and Democrats together, as Americans on this issue. It's not going to get resolved as a political wedge issue. We have to come together. The solutions are there, and we have to work together to do it. And I'm committed to doing it, and have done it in the past.
Vote no on question 4. Again, common sense what we talk about. Giving driver's licenses, I just put this in perspective, illegal immigrants. They're not here legally as they should be. Now, I agree, I think we've agreed on this back and forth. The immigration system is broken and that needs to be fixed. Immigrants are waiting 10 to 12 years to become a legal citizen, doing it the correct way, costing thousands and thousands of dollars. Again, you've been in Congress over 12 years, been in elected office for 45 years, but the same immigration problem, why have you done nothing to even help any immigrants become legalized immigrants? 45 years.
We will allow a 30-second follow-up on this issue.
Thank you. The years only matter if I'm running against him, because he's supporting a sheriff in Bristol County who wanted to take people in jail, besides breaking rocks, and bring them to the border to build Donald Trump's wall. These are prisoners from our district. That's who's supporting him. And guess how many years he's been in elective office? 34, and a quarter of a century as the sheriff. So I guess it's who you're running against when the years are a detriment. Last thing, I don't think people should be disqualified for what they've learned and been able to experience in a job.
Thank you.
So to go on the point, yes, 100%, I support the sheriff of Bristol County, who's been in multiple years, and here's the difference. A sheriff does a specific job. His job is to keep everybody safe. The job as a congressman is to relate to all of you and to relate to his district. That's what this congressman is not doing. He's been in office his whole life and does not have real life experience at all. You need a congressman, a person that relates to everybody, to you, to your families, to every person out there. Certain people in Washington do not fit that bill.
Thank you. Our next question will be asked by Courtney.
Do you think Congress should do more to address the opioid and heroin epidemic plaguing the Commonwealth and the country?
100%. We've seen again, here we go, another issue, again and again and again. It doesn't get better, it gets worse. We've had a 9% increase in opioid deaths just in Massachusetts alone, with Cape Cod being one of the epicenters. Where does it all start from? We go right back to immigration. It starts at the border. Over 85% of illicit drugs come across that southwest border, but yet we want to keep it wide open. There's a lot of issues down there. Nothing has gotten better. It continuously gets worse.
I think, like so many other people, I lost a cousin who died from an opioid overdose. It was a hard struggle. They tried, and it was difficult. I was a district attorney, and I know how enforcement works. I had my own drug task force when I was district attorney before I was in Congress. But I knew something else. I knew that's not enough. We have to deal with the demand issue, and we have to be able to take people that have this terrible addiction and treat them. Not stereotype them, not scorn them, but help them. I did that even as a district attorney, and I've done that in Congress. We have given monies to the states, to the communities, to use, and to our healthcare institutions, to use to deal with this terrible scourge, and to treat people. Give them a life. Make sure Narcan is there. Make sure the treatment is there, because it's a disease that reoccurs and reoccurs. It's several steps, and you have to keep working on it. I have. It's hit home, like it has with so many other people, and we'll continue to do this until we're successful.
Thank you. Our next question will be asked by Olivia. Yes. We can continue with the question.
Our next question is the pandemic and the government response to it responsible for inflation? What can we do to bring inflation down?
We have just passed Inflation Reduction Act that deals with the real core causes of inflation. Number one is the cost of oil and energy, and that was exacerbated by the Ukraine-Russian war. The other deals with the supply chain, particularly the way China dealt with the COVID issue and getting out. We addressed both of those issues in Congress, and we'll see the effects of it. Things don't happen the minute you make a vote, and then things change like you're turning a light switch on and off. But we've addressed those issues in inflation. We've also dealt with an important issue, prescription drug pricing, which is one of our most inflationary causes of cost and out-of-pocket expenses to people, and we've done that. We've limited the out-of-pocket expenses, insulin costs, ceiling at $35, and set up a competitive business of Medicare being able to negotiate their rights and not having this dictated by Big Pharma. So we've moved on all those fronts. We've met with the COVID, I think, with over 7,000 businesses here, getting assistance, struggling businesses going forward to keep their employees, keep those open, and to allow people to stay in their homes, and to make sure the healthcare institutions here, Cape Cod Health, Outer Cape Community Health, make sure they have the resources as well to provide the necessary assistance during this terrible, terrible pandemic.
So the number one thing that has caused inflation is the reckless spending that's been going down in Washington. Trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. I see that we're here, probably people go in a math class. When you spend money you don't have, there's things that happen. And the things that happen right now, we see 40-year high inflation that we're sit to where every family is struggling. We're choosing right now, we have families out there choosing between heat in their home and eating food. Your families, other families are going out, they're not judging by how much money that they're going to the supermarket with, they're judging by how many bags that they leave the supermarket with. And that's unsatisfactory. We do live in the greatest country in the world, but we have people down in Washington that spend money that we don't have. And the Inflation Reduction Act, where there's parts of it I agree with it and disagree with it, it's not reducing inflation one bit. That's a farce. It's a 100% fact it's not doing it. So to say that, to put a word out there, Inflation Reduction Act, like it's done something, it's done nothing for any of us out here. And to go into the pandemic, it's a thing. Sorry, I thought that was the bell for me. With the pandemic, I do agree there was businesses out there that need a tremendous amount of help because of a government-enforced shutdown. That's what it was. I'm a business owner. I had a moratorium on my business to not do work. So because the government put that in effect, they needed to do something for it. And the PPP loans helped out tremendously out there, but now it's time to pay that back. But what we shouldn't be doing right now is keep adding payments over and over to that.
Thank you. Our next question will be asked by Chloe.
What steps can Congress take to reduce misinformation in the media?
So,
Misinformation in the media.
who's first? I lost.
I think you would be first.
Okay, thank you. The issues of misinformation in the media, especially the social media that exists now, it's a real issue. We have freedom of speech in this country, It's one of our fundamental rights. But some of that now has gone so far, it's attracted violence. It's incited violence and activity. I know firsthand. I was in Washington on January 6th when groups that were organized and incited through the social media, through misinformation, who believed these wild conspiracy theories about Democrats with satanic cults, and who believed fundamentally that the election was not free and fair in this country, and they're still saying that the election was not legitimate. That's the core of our democracy, and it's being attacked by misinformation in the media, by these conspiracy theories, and unfortunately, it's being embraced these days from the political side as well. I had 139 people I served with that voted not to honor those elections. And to this day, we have people running all over the country as election deniers because they're bought into or taking advantage of this misinformation in the media and through social media.
And I think your question of what can Congress do, I don't think I'm a firm believer in freedom of speech, so there's not going to be much that they can do to people out there expressing their beliefs. That's number one, and we can sit here and talk about what Congressman Keating was talking about, but the end result is that I'm a supporter of freedom of speech, a First Amendment, and nothing's going to hinder that while I'm in Congress.
Thank you. Due to time limitations, we will have to end our questions there and ask the candidates to make concluding statements. Our first concluding statement will be from Jesse Brown.
First, I want to thank you, Congressman Keating. Thank you to everybody in here tonight. As we stated, we see a lot of things, a lot of issues with this country today. We have a lot of families struggling. We have yourself. You're going to school. You're going to pay astronomical amounts of money if you decide to go that route. I was just talking to Tyler earlier, school choice for coming to this school, and I'm a huge advocate of that school choice. And the money should follow all of you. Everybody in here learns differently, and to be subject and put into a corner, I think is wrong. I'm here to fight for all of you every single day and for your futures. And if you so choose, if you're all able to vote, or your parents, please go home. I would appreciate your vote on November 8th. Thank you.
Thank you. The next concluding statement will be from Representative Keating.
Thanks, Jesse. Thank all of you for organizing this and all of you for participating. I started out today's debate talking about when I was young and how people told me I was too young to make a difference. I hope you're encouraged. I'm certainly encouraged as I look out and listen to the thoughtful questions of all of you, your participation, that there's great opportunity to make things better. And a lot of it's going to fall on you. And a lot of people will be trying to slam the door in your face and saying, you're too young. But we heard those thoughtful questions that affect all of us, but particularly will affect your generation. Climate change, the threat of it, basic civil rights, whether you're a transgender student or not, basic rights that a woman would have to decide how she wants to make her own healthcare decisions. This is what this election is about. This is what our country is about. Our basic rights to vote are being threatened right now in our country. Votes are being suppressed and they're not being counted. So I'm coming away from this encouraged by all of your participation and your interest in this and your thoughtful questions. And I hope that you're going to be the new leaders to come. We're depending on you, and the generations after you will depend on you as well. Thank you so much for organizing.
Their busy schedules to participate in this debate. I would like to thank the student panel of questioners and our timers and our sound and light technicians. Thank you to our school administrators for supporting this event and to our students and guests in attendance. We wish the candidates luck in this election, and we actually have a thank you gift for each of you.